I'll let you start, Vince.
Welcome, everyone, to Blue Sunday. I think that's your job, isn't it, Rash? Yes, welcome everyone.
I can do it. Welcome, everyone, to Blue Sunday. I'm filling in today for Joe,
Yes, you
Bangkok
are.
Joe.
And thank you for doing that too, by the way.
It's my pleasure, mate. It's an absolute pleasure to jump on with you guys and with the hyphen also coming up shortly.
Yep.
So let's talk about today's show. I mean, we watched two amazing finals. I must say they were really, really good. So today, I think, if I may say, today we're going to just briefly talk about those two games, and maybe you can tell everyone else what we're going to do after that.
Yes, well, we thought we'd briefly review those games. They were fantastic finals, thankfully. I think the first week there was only probably the one really exciting final between Sydney and GWS. The others were very one-sided after a short space of time. But this time we were treated to two fantastic finals, albeit both of them interstate. So us Melburnians didn't have any finals to go to in person, but certainly great watching the TV over the last couple of nights. And then there's some interesting topics and issues and hot topics that have come out of those games too, isn't there? So we'll briefly go over those with Rhys. And then in the second half of the show today, we'll be going through like a season review of our playing list. So we'll start pulling apart the senior list, or at least the players that have played senior football this year. And we'll review some of those players, and we'll get David's take on how they went, whether they played a great season, an average season, below par, whatever it may be. We'll get his thoughts on how they played individually, and we'll also touch on those 5 delistings as well that took place only a few days ago when the club notified us of 5 players that won't be playing for Carlton next year.
Okay, can I just say also, so we'll go through maybe 10 players today, and then we'll do that consequently for the next couple of weeks.
Probably. We've got 3 weeks to go. We've got tonight. We've got next Sunday night, of course, after the preliminary finals. And then the last show of the season will be on the Sunday after the grand final, and that's when we'll complete this task. What we're going to do is concentrate early on with our predominantly our junior players and players that maybe haven't played quite as much football this year. And then we'll get into the more, and then we'll concentrate on the more regular contributors after that, and probably finish off with our more senior and elite players at the end. But it'll be interesting to get Rhys's thoughts on each of those players. So we'd love to have your opinions too, as we're discussing all of this, whether it's the semi-finals we've just seen, or whether it's the players that we're going to review, or any of the hot topics that are going to come up in conversation. We welcome your participation, of course, via the comments section on our Facebook page or on the YouTube channel. Of course, if you're trying to find us already, you should have found us if you're watching us anyway. So please give us your comments now. As soon as we start talking about
share, do the whole lot. You know the
drill.
Program a lot. Now, let me just go through a couple of formalities, and then we're going to introduce and put Rhys on the show. Now, first and foremostly, put this on the screen. This show is also brought to you by Blues Crypto, a fan token. Download it from the Phantom wallet in the App Store. There's the information there, and share your wallet address, and you will receive 10,000 tokens. Look, I met the guy personally. I had breakfast with Urg the other day, and what a lovely, lovely man. And he's a big, big Carlton supporter. So,
yes.
And just saying, and we'll finish on this, is that particular share, the Carlton coin, has just like doubled in the last week. So it just continues to rise, which is great. Not like our team. A couple other things. We are brought to you by the Jumper Punch channel. Don't forget to watch these guys on Tuesday night. Mars, Polo, and Rocco, of course, which we love the show on Tuesdays. My show's on Thursdays, the Change Room. Please don't forget to see that. Mindful Chats for the Game of Life. There is something else I wanted to show just quickly while I've got the audience. This is my book that's out. You can see it in the description of the YouTube. It's called For the Record and Off the Record Leadership Lessons from the Music World, featuring 40 hit lessons from Melbourne to Dubai. If you don't have a copy, get your copy, because Vince, you don't have your copy yet.
I'm still waiting for you to get me my copy. I only read hard copy, Rash.
It is hard copy. You can get it from Amazon.
That's what I'm waiting for. Let's meet up during the week. You can give me my book and I'll pay you for it.
No worries. Done. I think we're meeting up tomorrow for lunch with Joe. Now,
that's right.
If I may,
and by the way, if anyone's wondering where Joe is actually in Melbourne at the moment, but he's not in Thailand. So it's great to have had him here already for just over a week now. But unfortunately, we haven't had much opportunity to spend time with him. He's been so caught up with family and friends and all that sort of thing. And he's again caught up tonight. So he's actually caught up tonight. I'm hoping that maybe, just maybe, he'll be able to make a cameo appearance at some point this evening, but we'll wait and see if that happens.
Okay, without further ado, let's invite and put him to the chat. Our dear friend, Mr. David Rhys-Jones. Welcome back, mate. How are you?
Yeah, no, great to be here. And I've actually heard a rumor that Joe's actually frozen to death.
Oh, yeah, I heard that too, yes.
He doesn't like this weather.
Oh, he does. Oh, right. Yes, of course.
He's
well, of course, a cold day over there for him is something like 28 degrees over in Thailand.
We're
they're normally about 36 or something like that. Anyway,
no, great to be here. No.
By the way, boys, what we should do is also acknowledge some of our regular viewers who are still as loyal as ever, even though Carlton's been knocked out of the competition. They're still here to listen to us chat about all things football. Sandra McDonald, Lou Felino, Enzo Valentino, Peter V. Bluebagger, Rocco Moro, Jai S., Frank. Have I missed anyone else? I think I've got most of them.
When you started there, I thought you were going to welcome the country.
Don't get me started, mate. Don't get me started.
Wasn't that bloke fantastic up in Sydney on the weekend? Wasn't he great, eh? I was at a conference and went to a dinner for the Prada Willie Foundation, and that same bloke gave us a lecture for half a bloody hour. And that same bloke, he lectured us for half an hour on. And I was sitting next to me, missus. I felt like saying, well, what did they bloody build? They didn't build anything. He was talking about they were the earliest geologists, they were the earliest this, the earliest that, but they didn't build anything. They didn't do anything.
Oh, God.
I don't want to get into that anyway.
No, let's not, because, let's be,
There'll be someone out there who'll be not happy.
I'm going to have to probably delete a comment. All right, so let's get started. Let's talk about the first two games. So it started off on Friday night. The Hawks took on Port Adelaide, and I think that was an absolute, for me as a spectator, and Rhys, I'd love your take because you played in those types of games, but that felt like a grand final, that game. So just wanted to see just what you guys think of that.
Yeah, look, it was a game that Port dominated. They dominated the game until the umpires jumped in and give some dubious decisions, which the only thing Port didn't do was put the score on the board. They were dominating the play. They just couldn't put the score on the board. But I think 3 of the first 4 goals that Hawthorn kicked that got them back into the game were absolute shocking decisions by the umpires. And I'll tell you, it's getting to a stage now. I get frustrated. I got no skin in the game, and I get frustrated watching games. I got no skin in the game. So you can imagine what I'm watching a Carlton match, what I'm like. But geez, this game is so hard to understand now, and players now are going limp when they're getting tackled. They're throwing their head towards the ground to get these free kicks. So and the umpires are falling for it. And I just get so bloody frustrated. Those 2 tackles, I thought they were fantastic tackles, and should have been rewarded with free kicks. And Hawthorn got goals out of them. But that give Hawthorn some momentum. And people say umpires don't change matches. Well, umpires are now starting to change the course of matches. And I think we saw that on the weekend. The one where Danaher tackled the bloke who went to play on, and a player run into his space. Even though he was following another player, he's run into that space and give a free kick. Danaher tackled him, called play on, and Danaher tackled him and kicked the goal. And little things are momentum changing things in both matches. It was I can't understand the umpire and what's going on at the moment. It's just a foreign game. It's just ridiculous. I get frustrated watching. And it's so important. It's so important.
The first three goals that Hawthorn kicked on Friday night all came from free kicks.
Yep, and all dubious.
And one or two, I think, had 50-metre penalties attached to them straight after as well. So, it literally put them straight back into the game after being quite well dominated in terms of scoreboard anyway. It was a high pressure match, and both teams were putting on a lot of tackling pressure. But you've got to say, Port Adelaide, I think early in the second quarter, 3 goals to nothing, and all of a sudden, within a blink of an eye, it's 3 goals each.
Yeah.
It does change the course of the game when it's that tight, doesn't it?
Oh, especially in low-scoring games, yeah.
But what do you think of the actual? What did you think of the actual free kicks themselves, Rhys? I mean, they were called sling tackles. I mean, really, really? No, I mean, we're going to pay sling tackle for that, are we?
The umpires are running scared, and this is because we're got a weak. You get weak leadership in the AFL, and this is what happens. And we got weak leadership at the moment. And,
you tell me what you think, but I suspect that players are now milking this thing about when they get tackled and they hit their heads. As minute they can throw their heads back or hit their heads on the ground, they know they're a good chance of getting a free kick.
Well,
because in none of those cases were they concussed. Not in the slightest way concussed.
A player, once he's being tackled, he can use his own strength to
resist,
continue that motion, and cause a sling tackle, and put his head towards the ground. There was a classic case. I can't think of who it was who got tackled and went down and held his head as if he'd hurt himself on the ground.
Oh, was that the Stephen May case back early in the year? You mean?
No. There was one late on.
Are you talking about when Willie last night? Was it? Okay, I thought you were talking about maybe the Willie Rioli one where he basically got an Academy Award. I think he's been fined for that.
Yeah, no, this was just on, and it was just a normal tackle, and the bloke's called out holding his head. And start finding players for it. Start finding players for taking the piss, really, and acting and this sort of stuff, because it's the only way you're going to stop it happening. And the players who are being tackled, geez, be man enough. Don't be a bloody wet fish and just go with a tackle. Try and break the tackle for a start, and and get on with the game and play like men, not like bloody girls. But
at the end of the day, if the players know that the umpires are trigger happy on this sort of free kick, because any evidence of a player's head hitting the ground, well, geez, it must have been a dangerous tackle. Well, they're going to milk it. They're just going to milk it. I guarantee you that they're all going to start doing this.
Yeah, and Hawthorn are becoming the best at it, and Hawthorn are becoming the best at also getting the high tackles too. And it's their small forwards who are good at it. I mean, Ginnivan, this Watson kid now, the Wizard, he's not bad at getting a high tackle too. I know he's small and everything, but they know how to drop a shoulder and how to lean in and get that head high. And what's going to happen soon is one of these kids is going to lead with their head. Get a head-high tackle, but they're going to be knocked in the next week and not play for 6 weeks, and then it's going to get worse again. It's going to because they're putting their head in danger. They're going to cause something, and it's going to reverberate. Right?
And you can hear and sorry, Rash, go on.
No, you go.
I was going to say, you can even hear the commentary, the Channel 7 commentators. They're obviously being told to, restrain themselves when it comes to having a go at umpiring decisions. But even they can't help but mention that, that didn't look like a sling tackle to me. That looked more like he caressed him to the ground or whatever. I mean, they're even making mention of it as well, that this is where you haven't got a real feel for the game.
Look, if I was looking over the rounds on the weekend and the news of the football at the moment should be about the umpiring, should be about the mistakes they made, the big mistakes that caused the games to change trajectory, and that's what they should be talking. I mean, they're talking about Ken Hinkley or somebody, having a crack at Kinnaman.
We'll talk about that in a sec.
Yeah, but I mean, they should be. The umpiring, it's hardly got a mention. It really has hardly got a mention, which I thought would have been big news because
I'll tell you what would have been big news is if Port Adelaide had lost that game. I remember at half time, getting messages from a friend of mine who was filthy on the umpire, and I just said this could cost Ken Hinkley his job. I mean, if Port Adelaide lose tonight, it's those sorts of decisions that were all in favour of Hawthorn there to bring them back into the game. That could cost Ken Hinkley his job. I reckon if they had have lost that final, all the talk would be about whether Ken Hinkley's going to get sacked today or tomorrow. And in the end, they were fortunate that they got over the line, but it almost, again, takes the heat off the discussion about that umpiring decision, or those umpiring decisions that granted Hawthorn 3 goals.
That there was heaps of mistakes on that game. We can keep on going for ages. There's a comment here. What about the out of bounce from Chol? So
that was another one. The boundary.
I don't understand why they don't do goal review. They do goal review, but that's completely out of bounds. That it baffles me. And the other one I just want to say to get Reese's point of view is the one where they hold your arm, right? And it's holding the ball. I don't get that. That's more dangerous than a sling tackle. So, it doesn't make sense.
Oh, anyway, the chicken wing tackles?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. You can't get rid of the ball, even if it's you
got the ball in one hand and they've got your arm with the other, so you can't actually hand pass it. So all you can do is drop the ball and try and kick it.
It's dangerous. Anyway, it's not a good spectacle. Guys, let's talk about, because we could keep on going about this for ages. Let's talk about I do want to talk about the Ken Hinkley thing. I think that's really important. But let's talk about just maybe some standout players. What caught your eye in that game, and then let's talk about Ken Hinkley and that controversial thing with Sicily at the end.
Yep. Well, I'll just briefly go over the scores of the game for starters. Port Adelaide were 11-9-75 in the end to Hawthorn's 11-6-72. It was pretty tight all the way through. Port Adelaide held a 13-point lead, 15-2 at quarter time. Then Hawthorn kicked 4 goals to 3 in the second quarter and ended up being only 9 points down at halftime. That was 5-6-36 to 4-3-27. Then they kicked another 3 goals to 2 in the third quarter. So it was a 5-point lead to Port Adelaide, 7-8-50 to 7-3-45. And in the last quarter, both sides scored 4 goals each, 4-1 to Port, 4-3 to Hawthorn. And so in the end, it was just that 3-point margin. And it was a real classic. I think it'll go down as one of the classic finals of all time. Mitch Georgiades scored 3 goals, 2 for Port Adelaide. Willie Rioli 2, Darcy Byrne-Jones 2, and the rest were singles. And for Hawthorn, Nick Watson, the Wizard, got 3 goals, 1. Jack Ginnivan got 2, and the rest were singles, including James Sicily, who scored 1 goal and 2 points, one of which hit the post with a minute to go.
Good move to get him into the forward line. Good move. It was a bit David Parkin-esque with Sauce flipping it,
Yeah. So I guess what did you think of? Who did you think were the most influential players on the ground? Reece, did you have any feel for who you thought might be the best players for each? I thought the ruckman for Port Adelaide was outstanding, and that's not to say that the Hawthorn ruckman what's his name? Lloyd Meek. Meek, isn't it? Yeah. That's not to say that he wasn't a good player either. He got 35 hit-outs, but I thought Jordan Sweet, 52 hit-outs and 5 tackles, 15 disposals, and just one of the greatest chases I've seen a ruckman make, which forced Nabiol Chol to run too far and turn the ball over at a crucial time. I thought he was the best man on the ground for Port Adelaide.
Yeah, and sometimes
he was an absolute workhorse and a half.
Well, I would have given it to young Burgoyne on the back flank.
And he's the other one. Yeah.
Geez, he was a star. He he's got the surname, and he certainly played like a Burgoyne because
is he the son? Is he the son of Peter Burgoyne, who also used to wear number 7 for Port Adelaide? I think he is.
I didn't know much about him. I've seen him play a couple of times, and he didn't seem to be doing too much. But I've
got a feeling he is.
Yeah.
I believe he is. Maybe someone in the chat can tell us.
Yeah, I think he's Peter Burgoyne's son. He used to play for Port Adelaide, and of course Sean Burgoyne, who wore number 8, eventually went to play for Hawthorn. So he's definitely got that Burgoyne look about him and feel about him. He's a fantastic young talent, isn't he?
Oh, and he had a terrific game, and bouncing back off a pretty poor performance, the week before. So, and that's credit to him. I think Butters was a bit the same. What he got out and did, he had to show he had to tackle, he had to get in, do some hard stuff, and if he did, he was going to have a tag for the rest of his life. So, it was
Can I just say,
I thought they were fantastic early, Port. They just they stopped Hawthorn's run, and they really did have control of the game. They just couldn't put it on the scoreboard. That was a major issue. And Todd Marshall come in for the other big fellow,
Dixon.
Dixon.
Yeah, he was way underdone, Todd Marshall. I know he went off with concussion, but he didn't look right anyway, to be honest.
No.
And I know he's been ruled. I know he's been ruled out for this week's preliminary final.
Which means they'll bring Dixon. They'll have to bring Dixon back in. He's really got to play, but he was a bit of a liability the week before. But so were a lot of those players who did bounce back. So it's up to see whether Big Charlie can bounce back and impose himself in a preliminary final.
Guys, look. If I may say, I'm becoming a big fan of Horn Francis. I think that he's such a good player to watch. The guy, he got cramped. He's a goer. I mean, it's great. That was. I was going to ask you, Rhys, because you played in grand finals. Did that look like to you because that was the most pressure game I've seen in the finals to date. As a spectacle, when you're watching it, it just was like the first quarter. Like I watched the Brisbane and GWS game, and I didn't feel that it was that much intensity. It was pressure, and it got pressure towards the end. But the Hawthorn game was it was full entertainment from start, from the go.
Yeah, it was mainly because Port Adelaide couldn't put the score on the board when they had all the play down there, and if they'd have put it on the board, they could have put the game out of reach. But and then the umpires intervened, and we had a good game. I don't know whether umpires like giving frees to get goals for teams, so then they can have a close game, and then they can say, "What a great game!" and I umpired that, so put me in the grand final. I don't know. You wouldn't know what they're up to. But it was, but you got the best sides playing against. The best sides are playing against each other. You expect to see the best of it. So and as you go deeper into the final series, I mean, probably the only there's been a couple of bad finals, but the majority of them have been pretty good so far. You've got the best players playing. You've got the best teams, the best players, and the most informed teams, playing against each other. And how they've got there is through, consistency and the amount of pressure they've been able to provide throughout the course of the year. And, I think it really showed up Carlton. We just this year weren't quite up to it. And you've only got to look back 12 months though, and we were up to it last year.
Yeah.
You know, we're up there, up to our teeth in it. So when we were able to provide that pressure and put it on and for 100 minutes, but you know, circumstances and everything this year, we just weren't able to do it.
Yeah, this corresponding Sunday, when we did the show this time last year, we just come off that exciting win against Melbourne. So how things can change in 12 months, eh? Finishing off on that Port Adelaide Hawthorn game before we move on. Just briefly, Rhys, what did you make of the post-match goings-on between Ken Hinkley and Jack Ginnivan, and then James Sicily gets involved, and then Sam Mitchell talks about it in his press conference, and then Ken Hinkley comes out on the front foot in his press conference and sort of, I'm not sure whether it was an apology, but it was more like a statement of regret that he did what he did. But I know some commentators have actually said they don't understand why he apologised, because they thought he was well within his rights to fire a few barbs back after they'd been totally disrespected during the week. What did you make of it?
Well, and he has been fined $20,000 too, so that's come out.
Has he really?
Yeah, he's been fined $20,000.
Why does that not surprise me by the woke FL?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the same penalty that McCartney got last week for actually chesting a player. So
so is this because he simply
it's the old sticks and stones theory I've got, that, you know.
But hang on, all he's done is fire a few barbs. He didn't swear. He just had a smile on his face and said, "You won't be flying. You won't." Well, I think he did the airplane thing. You won't be flying anywhere next week, mate. But is that unbecoming of a coach? This is the debate.
It's not smart. It's not a smart thing to do, because you know,
if that was a Carlton coach, would you be welcoming that or not?
Sorry,
if there was a player on an opposition side that said to his mate, "I'll see you in 2 weeks when we play you in the prelim," because he's automatically assuming they're going to beat Carlton. Yeah. And the Carlton coach came out and did what Ken Hinkley did. Would you applaud that in how he stuck up for his players and stuck up for the club?
Yeah, but that's
or would you say, nah, that's not very becoming of an AFL senior coach. You've got to be better than that, and all that sort of talk.
Look, I think you've got to be better than that, but I also think, you know, he's as you said earlier, and this year he's had his job on the line. He had his job, you know. I mean, for a period there, you know, with Sicily lining up late in the game, and you know, luckily hit the post sort of thing for Kenny. He'd lost his job time and time again. I mean. And that's how crucial it is to him. So of course he was a bit emotional after it, and you know, he's said something, but I think Sicily got more upset about the fact that Bruce was being carried off at that time, and I think the timing of it was pretty poor too, and I think it took a little bit away from Luke Bruce being chaired off, you know, for his 300th game. So, from that point of view, I think it was just bad timing and so forth. He could have gone into the rooms afterwards and said to the press, "Oh, is Jack cancelling his tickets? You know, flights next week, whatever. You know." So you could say something along those lines, but. Anyway, we know what Jack.
It's an emotional game. He let the emotions get the better of him, but you can sort of understand, as you pointed out, with his job on the line, and you know, if that result had gone the other way, he'd probably be looking for a new job tomorrow.
Exactly. Well, you know, it was.
But it's going to cost him. But it's going to cost him $20,000.
Well, it has. Yeah, it's cost him $20,000. Yeah, it's
expensive thing to do. But anyway. What about the other issue? I heard Kane Corns come out with a comment in the last 24 hours that said, well, Hawthorn can dish it out. You know, they like to have these, you know, they applaud their players for getting on social media and doing all this sort of thing, and they're happy for Ginnivan to make comments like he did. But when it comes back the other way, they're not so good at handling it, and they become sooks. What did you think of that?
Well, that's what happens. I mean, if you're going to dish it out,
you got to
cop it. Don't worry, I had plenty of that in my career.
Now, if you were Sam
Mitchell,
Mitchell, would you continue to allow guys like that to continue doing what they do and don't restrict them in any way? It seems that he just lets them do whatever they want. Or do you pull him aside and say, now, that little comment may have spurred them just that little bit extra to get them out? That could have cost us a premiership.
There's a team that got beat by 84 points last week.
Because let's face it, Hawthorn had everything going the way they've been playing. They could very well have made a grand final.
And Port were the opposite. Port got smashed, so they were in the opposite boat, and no doubt that got brought up during the week and motivated the players out there.
Well, Kenny said it. He said, "I absolutely I used it." He needed everything he could lay his hands on to try and spur his players on after being belted by 14 goals the week before.
I think with things like that too, it's got to come from the leadership too, and the other players around to say, what the F are you doing? Why would you come out and say or do something so stupid? And I mean, Sicily and those blokes, the leaders, they should be really talking, grabbing Ginnivan and pulling him aside and just saying, look, just pull your head in, will you? Because we're gonna win a game of football. We don't need these you giving them added motivation to come out.
It's hard enough to win these finals without you spurring on the opposition. Yeah.
And it's all new to all them. It's all new to most of those players. There's a few who've been through it, Gunston and Bruce and so forth, but not that many. And Sam Mitchell as a coach too. It's all new to him as a coach. So they'll learn by it, and hopefully they'll do it behind closed doors. But that's the way it was always, and always has been done. I mean, it's your peers who get you aside. Call you in and call it for what it is, sort of thing. I mean, it's that what was the mob who used to get around and get the players. I think Gary Ablett was one player who benefited from it, getting told, he Gary Ablett Jr. that is, who got told by his teammates he just wasn't working hard enough and doing enough and leading teams, wasn't it? Leading teams. And they come in and have the honesty and so that needs to come out a little bit with Hawthorn at the moment. They need to reflect on, but gee, they're going to be around for a few years now. They've got something pretty special there at the moment. A little bit like Collingwood had a couple of years back, and we sort of looked at them and said, geez, aren't Collingwood a good team to watch, and aren't they exciting? And and they managed to get a premiership out of it. So
they've emerged.
And it's very similar what's happening with Hawthorn at the moment.
And you can see in their team that they've got some deficiencies, mainly in the key position areas, and that's why they're so actively recruiting.
But so's Collingwood.
Guys like
So's Collingwood. I mean, you look at Collingwood.
I understand that. But all I'm saying is,
Christ, I mean, they've got some deficiencies there, but they were exciting to watch. They just, they took the game on, and I wish, and that's, I wish Carlton would do more of that. It's funny when we lost all those players and we go over to the West and next minute just take the game on and the players go out and get a bit of freedom and they wallop the Eagles. So that was a fantastic win. And you see it when coaches, they get so caught up in what, where people should be and where they shouldn't be, instead of letting them just play football. They all got there because they're good footballers. I mean, let them play to their strengths. If I hear running patterns and stuff like that anymore, I'll do a Terry Wallace. I'll hear it in my spew. I'll spew. And it is like that. It just drives you bloody mad. Our running patterns were good and this happened, but I reckon we didn't get the bloody score on the board.
I was going to say, we'll move on from that. I was going to say that because again, we're back to 10 years ago. Free kick Hawthorn. We're going back to that. But let's move to the next. Let's move to the next game.
Yep.
And
of course it was a great game last night where Brisbane Lions 15-15 105. I think it was the only time in the match that they had as many goals as points, because up until then they'd kicked so many more points than goals. But 15-15, 105 defeated the GWS Giants, 15 goals, 10-100 in one of the greatest comeback victories since the 1970 grand final between Carlton and Collingwood. And it was the same margin, 44 points.
44 points, yeah.
Except the difference was that Carlton's deficit was at halftime. The Brisbane Lions were 44 points down, well over halfway through the third quarter. It was 80-36 at one point in time. And I don't know what happened, Rhys, but we'll let you tell us what you think happened. But it was one of the most massive turns around I ever witnessed in my life.
Well, it's either one or two things. It's happened 2 weeks in a row, and it's either fitness and or it's above the shoulders. It's
what do you suspect?
I couldn't see how a team couldn't be at their peak fitness,
But this time of year.
I mean, you should be able to run full games out. So I reckon it comes above the shoulders, and teams these days don't. They seem to go into their shell once they do get a lead, and they then go into negative. They play slow and they change their whole game. The game against the Swans the week before, 2 minutes into the last quarter, I said to my wife, I said, GW,
they're trying to save this
they're
game.
going to lose this. They just changed the entire way they play and started chipping the ball sideways, and I thought, you can't score doing that. Get the ball into your forward line. Put the game out of reach. I mean, that's what you need to do. You've got to keep scoring. If you, as soon as you stop scoring and go into that negative mindset, the ball's in their 50-metre area because you're defending. And when it's in there, they're a chance of getting it or getting a free kick or getting the ball and kicking goals. So get it out of there, get it down in your forward 50 and start scoring. I mean, it drives you mad, but I knew straight away, and you could feel it yesterday. You could just feel when they started, when they it was a goal, and then there was another goal, and it just seemed like they're not going to bounce back. They're not going to. They're going to try and defend it. They're going to really try and defend it, and they just threw the game away. And
but the thing is,
once you lose that momentum, you're gone.
The thing is, though, if you really assess it, right now, let's take it from that point. It was 80-36, 4 goals, 12-36. By the way, that's how inaccurate Brisbane were.
Yeah.
And I think the Giants were 12 goals, 80. Now, Brisbane piled on 5 fantastic goals in pretty quick time to reduce it back from 44 down to about 13 points. It got back to 13. I think they kicked the point as well. So it got back down to 13 points before three-quarter time. And then GWS kicked the following 3 goals of the game to bring it back up again to 5 goals. Do you know they kicked the first goal of the last quarter after kicking the last 2 goals of the third quarter? So Brisbane got back to 13, but then the GWS steadied again and got it back out to 25 at three-quarter time. Then they kicked the first goal of the last quarter, got it back to over 5 goals. It was 31 points. That was the last goal that they scored for the game.
Yeah.
Now, and it was Brisbane after that that kicked the last 6 goals of the game. Now,
and they had the most dominant forward. They had the most dominant forward in Jesse Hogan on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, just keep getting the ball down to him. Why wouldn't you just keep getting the ball down to him? Because he was doing the job down there.
And why didn't Harris Andrews go onto him? Tell me something. I mean, they bellyached the Brisbane Lions about how Harris Andrews should have got the All-Australian instead of Jacob Wiedering yet again.
But
finally, Jacob Wiedering got what he deserved. Harris Andrews wimped out to me. I reckon he should have taken on.
No, the difference between
Jesse
Harris
Hogan.
Andrews and Jacob Wiedering, Jacob Wiedering will take the best
The responsibility,
defensive forward. Harris Andrews plays in that James Sicily type role. It's Darcy
Intercept.
Moore type role. It's the intercept marking role across the back half, and you see what happened to Darcy Moore this year. He didn't have a very good year because that Nathan Murphy got injured and wasn't there to be able to.
But my point is though, my point
role.
is that Harris Andrews is a co-captain. He's meant to be a leader of that club. Apparently, Chris Fagan leaves it up to him and his backmen to decide who's going to play on who. When he could see that Jack Payne was clearly being outpointed by Jesse Hogan, he never once took him and said, no, listen, mate, this guy might be getting the better of you. Let me take him for a while. No, did not offer to do it once. I thought that was poor from Harris Andrews. I reckon they really hung him out to dry, poor old Jack Payne. He already had a pretty dodgy knee going into the game, so he didn't have any power in that leg. And he was clearly struggling against Jesse Hogan, who kicked 5 goals in the end. But anyway, I just thought that Harris Andrews, to me, he left me a bit empty after that.
But that's the way he plays every week, though. He plays in that role. He won't, very rarely will he take the dominant forward because his roles, to get there and intercept and and start that run. Him and Zorko are the two keys to their back line in that area.
By the way, I've gone through the final scores of the game. I'll go through the goal kickers. Jesse Hogan, as I said, got 5. Toby Green got 3. Peatling got 2 excellent goals at the start of the game, and the rest were singles. Whereas the Brisbane Lions, Joe Danaher 4, including 2 of the best clutch goals you'll ever see anyone kick, let alone him, in the last 2 goals of the game. So he got 4 goals, 1. Charlie Cameron got 2. Kai Lohman got 2. And Dane Zorko chipped in for 2 in the second half after being well outpointed in the back line in the first half.
Yeah,
so again, who do you reckon were the best, most influential players on the ground, just briefly?
Oh, look, I suppose it was a game of 2 halves, wasn't it? It was, Hogan was fantastic. I thought, he dominated up forward, and he's a quality player. I remember watching him when I was calling the VFL, and this is going back when Melbourne first got him, sort of thing, and. I think on the VFL telecast, I said this kid could be the next Wayne Carey, and he's faltered since then. But he's got some football nous. He's got real football ability, and that's what I loved about him then.
Yeah.
And he's never lost that. But obviously, he's gone a bit haywire off the field and done been in a couple of clubs now, but he's
come full circle. He's come full circle. He's playing the best football of his career now, isn't he?
Yeah, and living up to that potential that I saw as a young kid, 17-year-old, just dominating in VFL. So he's credit to him.
He's the first player who's won a Rising Star Award to go on and win a Coleman medal.
Okay,
apparently.
So,
I thought again that the ruckmen were unbelievable, especially Kieran Briggs. Again, just enormous in the ruck with 55 hitouts. But McInerney for Brisbane was also excellent with 38 as well. So he had a very good 150th game and kicked an important goal out of the ruck, a ruck contest where he just put it on the boot and kicked the goal. But the one who really caught my eye was young Will Ashcroft. I reckon this kid has got the potential to be as damaging and as much of a live wire as a Nick Dacos one day. This kid Will Ashcroft. I think he's really got some potential.
I knew you were going to say Nick Dacos then, and I was just going to say that the difference is this kid will go in and get the ball. He'll get the hard ball. He'll really hunt it. He's not like Dacos who does a lot of his better work on the outside. This kid goes and gets it and does smart things with it. He's got another one, good footy brain, and
yeah.
The good thing you like to see about kids like that is they're allowed to express themselves and play their football. They're not inhibited, and I just see, in too much in and I'm going to go back to Carlton now. Our players are just not given that freedom to go out and express themselves and do it. It seems like there's a couple, Cripper and Walshy, and these guys can run around and do what they want, but the rest of them have got to be somewhere or doing something, or they've all got roles, and I just think we need to have a good look at the way we play footy, to be honest, and we're gonna because this group of players is our chance to be a premiership team again. And
they keep saying that our list profile is cherry ripe for a premiership in terms of age, age profile, the amount of games played, all that sort of thing.
I was talking to Andrew McKay the other day, and he was part of that. That they were there when they got Curnow and Mackay, Wiedering, and these blokes. They got them, and the right age. Got them all in the first. In those couple of years.
That was 9 years ago, at the end of 2015.
Yes, and it's perfect. And now they can see the fruits of it, but it just needs to be. Because this is a chance. I mean, Tassie's coming in a couple of years, and we're that's when you're going to lose draft picks. We haven't had a Rising Sun award winner this year, and I don't think over the last few years we've had very many at all. So that
as in a rising star nomination, no, that's
nomination.
Right.
Sorry, nominations. And just a nomination. A good kid.
Because we haven't, as you said last week, we haven't played any of the kids. I mean,
we haven't played them.
How can you get a Rising Star nomination if you're not going to play them?
I think Ollie Hollins would have probably, got
one last year, maybe
early last year, and he was doing well. But you look back through, and who else would have got Rising Stars, in our team?
Can I just say that's a fantastic segue to the next part of our topic, which is let's assess some of the players. Okay. So I think we're done with the Brisbane. I think just
briefly finishing up on that game. I think clearly GWS, the last three finals they've had, they've lost by a goal or less. And I'm going back to the 1 point loss that they had in the prelim last year against Collingwood, and then this year a 1 goal loss to Sydney in Sydney after leading by 28 points, and last night, a 5 point loss after leading by 44 points halfway through the third quarter. That's really going to do some emotional damage, I reckon. But anyway, I think Brisbane's won 2 finals in a row now, and they seem to be heading off to play Geelong next week full of confidence.
Yeah,
we'll get your predictions for those 2 preliminary finals at the end of the show, Rhys. Let's move on now. So we'll start reviewing the Carlton players that we wanted to talk about tonight.
Can I just say to the guys, get involved with the chat. We're going to go through the names. Please like. We've only got 1 like. It's not good enough.
Oh, really?
We've got to press the like buttons, guys.
We might get sacked.
They're all gone. They're on holiday.
They're in Bali.
They're Thailand.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
Anyway,
let's go with the players. So,
and I think if you put up some of their comments too, Rash, that might help get the likes up. All right,
I've been doing it. Yep.
First of all, before I go through some of the players that are still with us, quickly your thoughts, Rhys, on the 5D listings that were announced late this week. Obviously, 2 of them were players who had never played a senior game, as in Dominic Aquay, who was a project rookie player for. I think he'd been on our list for about 4 years, and I think the other one was too. Alex Murkov, the big 7-foot ruckman, never got close to playing a game, either of those 2. Yep. So they've been cut from the list. But the other 3 obviously were more topical, as in Jack Martin, Caleb Marchbank, and David Cunningham. What did you think of the decision to delist those 3?
Yeah, well, Joel, just go back to that Akui or whatever his name is.
Yeah, Dominic Aquay. Yeah,
Aquay. Well, he was what do they call them?
It's got it in the comment.
A development player or something.
Yeah,
No,
he
Academy.
was. He was part of the Carlton Academy, and
Yeah.
I think it's the only player who's in there from the academy. I mean,
Is that
what's
right?
our academy? Where's our academy, and what are we doing there? I mean, we should be. You have a look at what Sydney's doing. I mean, guaranteed they've got a bigger base and probably a better area and everything, but they got some superstars, coming out of their academy, and we've had one bloke and we just sacked him. So I don't know. I don't know where our academy is, what it does, who's in charge of it, but it's not doing much. And you see other teams, having academy players, and we don't seem to, have done anything out of that.
Well, anyone who saw Dominic Aquay play in the VFL will tell you that he just didn't seem to be able to get enough of the ball. Played with a little bit of flair and dash out of the back line, but never got close. I think the only time we ever saw his name on a senior list was as an emergency in that game against West Coast, because we literally ran out of other players to put down as an emergency.
Yeah.
And same with Alex Murkoff, exactly the same. What about Martin, Marchbank, and Cunningham? What did you make of the delistings of those three?
Yeah, look, I think we'd all say that we didn't think those three would be part of it next year anyway. I was surprised they delisted Jack Martin only because I don't know. It's probably better for him. It helps him able to get somewhere that he wants to go, I suppose, and talk to people. But but I don't know.
He only played the 3 games. He only played the 3 games for us this year, and over the 5 years that he was with us, he played, I think, 54 games, which meant that his average was approximately 11 games per season, and that I think sums it up. Just non-availability. We all acknowledge his skill and ability, but just never available.
And that applies to all 3 of them. All 3 of them.
Exactly.
Their skill and ability, no problem with that. But able to get on the paddock is just not their forte. So
they're not value for money after a while.
Well, and you run out of time too if you're not out there for periods of time. The game gets beyond you, and you've got to be out there playing. And if you're not, your history sort of thing. So thank them for their service, and on your way, fellas, and let's hope we can get people in who can. And we need to start getting some kids in too. We need to hit the draft, and there's some real pressure on our recruiting staff too to go and start picking the eyes out of what's out there, because we keep seeing other teams. I mean, some teams have been lucky. We're just talking about a kid who was a father-son a minute ago, so with Ashcroft sort of thing, and you can get lucky with those things. We're going to get lucky this year with the Camperoli boys, but it's picking those 2 up is going to be handy, but we're still going to, be smart about our recruiting too, because we need someone to. Nick Haynes apparently is coming along. What's he? He's about 32 at the moment, though, isn't he?
32, and I think the last game he played was pretty ordinary, so much so that they dropped him for the finals.
Yeah. No, I think he's going to be depth, guys. He's not going to get a game. He's going to be depth. It's just in case someone breaks down, they got someone. Because Sam,
I don't know about that, Rash. I think he's recruiting him with a view that we need a really decent, strong centre half back.
Yep. And he's going to be he's the choice at the moment that they're looking at. So, and it's also what they can afford too, because he's been on big money too. He was well up there in that 100, Nick Haynes. So
really,
he was well up there. So and he can't get a game with GWS. So so that's going to be up to them.
But I mean, surely recruiting a guy like that tells you, at 32 years of age, that there's no long-term view in recruiting someone like that. It's all to top up so that you can have a crack at that premiership.
Yeah,
we're clearly looking to just add the meat around the bone, so that we can actually get up into the top 4 and give ourselves a chance to win a premiership?
Oh, look, I'd be hoping we could get someone around 26, 27 to fill that role, rather than the 32-year-old. But if that's all that's available, then you've got to go for it because. But I wouldn't be throwing too much money at him either because no one's going to think he's going to be worth that much. So,
all right. So that's the delistings. Let's quickly go through. I thought we'd start off with the young and emerging players that have played senior football this year. Before we do, we should also just quickly mention that Jack Silvani didn't play a game this year because of his ACL, so we're obviously not going to be assessing him. But just quickly to touch on him, seeing he's jumper number 1, what are we expecting from Jack next year? Where do you think he can slot in, and what role do you think he should be playing for our side next year when he comes back?
I think you know what you'll get with Jack, and you can fit him into any role. He's a heart and soul player, and that's what you're going to get from him. And
where would you play him?
Good question.
High half forward, wing, back line. Where would you
I'd look at trying him in the back line. I'd look at trying him in the back line.
I was going to ask, why can't he fulfill a role like centre half?
Well, that's what I'm saying. You know, you know what you're going to get with him, and
he could be a great centre.
So he's got the right.
He's 194 centimetres. Surely that's tall enough to be. So long as he puts on the size, surely that's. I mean, he's now 26 years of age. He's not a spring chicken anymore. Yeah. He'll be 27 at the end of this year. I mean, I would have thought maybe a challenge like that to play in defence like his old man did. I reckon that might suit him.
Yeah, it'd be great to see, you know, because, there's going to be limited spaces in that forward line, and the two big boys back and you know, hopefully firing and DeConning going through there as well. That's where I'd be looking at for him anyway, and give him every chance over the summer to learn the craft.
And the other one I wanted to touch on, even though he played the first game of the year and the last game of the year against exactly the same side on exactly the same ground, I speak of Sam Doherty. Did his knee in not even round 1. What did they call it?
Yeah,
opening round. Opening round.
Yep.
Yeah, opening round at the Gabba, the 1-point win we had against Brisbane Lions, and then played in the last game, which was the final that we lost. So, again, what do you think of Doherty and where he sits on the list? And he's turning 31 next month.
Yep.
He's had 3 knee reconstructions. He's had battles with cancer. I mean, he's just been courageous as all hell. And he's been through the wars in more ways than most of us will. What do you think of his? Yeah.
Once again,
what do you think of his future?
Well, once again, you know what you're going to get, don't you? You know exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get a bloke who's going to give his all for the club. So, in some ways, they were 2 blokes who we really did miss this year in that heart and soul type of fashion. I mean, besides
and his leadership too.
You know, that's it. And Cripper, you know, had to, you know, carry most of that himself. So. With Walshy, you know, missing a fair chunk of the early part of the year and then getting.
So you still see Sam Doherty as being part of our best 23? I've heard some people say, I think we've got to go past Doherty. I think he's done and finished now, and all this sort of dismissive talk.
No,
but I do think that a lot of people take that leadership side of things for granted.
Exactly, and the guys who will. They'll be going 100. You know, Silvani and Doherty are going to give you everything you want.
Heart and soul players.
And you're looking at other players out there and going, well, Jesus Christ, they need a rocket up them. The rocket could be, you know, these guys and getting out there. So no worries about them. And look, if the game's, you know, if the game is passing them on, they're still that valuable to have around the club and helping the young blokes come through, whether they're playing VFL or AFL.
I've heard some people say that if we happen to land Dan Houston from Port Adelaide, that's probably the halfback flank that would normally be occupied by Sam Doherty.
He's played on a wing. He's played in the midfield. He's played in other positions. So don't worry about him. Don't worry about him. He'll be fine.
All right. Let's quickly go through some other young blokes and see what your thoughts are on how they went this year. Lockie Cowan, number 2.
Yeah, shows a lot of courage and got a lot of good traits to him. Makes some mistakes. He does make some mistakes, and on the back line you just can't afford to. So he's got to tidy that area of his game up and be a little bit more consistent in what he's doing there. I think it's sometimes just the mistakes that let him down a little bit, but he has a crack.
Yeah, his averages are they're all pretty much on the below average side of things. I'm looking at the AFL website here on the AFL app. About the only thing he's above average is in tackles. He averages about 3 tackles a game, which is apparently above average. So other than that, amount of disposals, kicks, handballs, marks, etc., is all a bit on the below average side. But I think he's shown us that there's a big upside coming up with this young kid.
It's his second year. He's had 2 years in it. So, he gets
he's an emerging
we want
player.
to see coming on,
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay. Then we've got number 3, Jesse Motlop.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of his? He didn't play many games, but when he came back from injury, what did you think of the impact he had, if any, on the side?
Well, he had very little impact. So
he kicked 6 goals in 7 games, apparently.
Yep. And
that's what he played.
Did little else, that's the other sad thing about it. If he's not kicking goals, he's doing very little else. And small forwards, I think he's got all the attributes. He just hasn't got pace. He seems to lack a bit of pace, and which is just crucial in that small forward area. I mean, that's what makes them.
By the way, did you see that? Did you see that piece of play by Nick Watson on Friday night, the Wizard from Hawthorn, when he roved that ball off the pack and just burst away from the pack and at pace, and then kicked that ball through the middle? That was an unbelievable. That brought me back to the days of Alex Marcoux and Rod Ashman and guys like that. Yeah, just Jimmy,
unbelievable. And Adrian.
He got 9 kicks for the game, but he kicked 3 goals and had a huge impact, didn't he?
Yep. And they know how to rove off the front of a pack, and that's what I just can't understand, how our small forwards don't work off our big blokes and hit the front of the pack, get up the ground and start working in. They seem to be leading up all the time. We got Motlop leading for the ball, leading up, calling for the ball, and
Corey Durden flying for marks.
Owies and Durden doing the same thing, and I'm thinking they should be up the ground running in.
But who's coaching them on how to be small forwards? This is what I don't understand.
Well, I don't know who the forward coach is. I know Aaron Hamill's the back coach, but I'd have him as the forward coach because that's where he played all his players.
Jordan Russell.
But do these guys know about the craft and the art of being a small forward? Do they?
Yeah, it is a skill, and they should train it. I mean, when I coached, I used to train that into players, and you train it into all your players, though. I mean, if you're caught, because anyone, it could be your ruckman who's caught out of position and the ball goes over, and you want to make sure he knows where to run to, where the ball's likely to go to. And because, we all get in situations on the ground, and you've got to have players prepared for everything that happens, but you've got to train that into them as well. Look, modern football, everyone will call me a dinosaur, so I'll just keep talking how I think.
So let's, moving forward, Jesse Motlop, he's 20 years of age. He's had an injury-interrupted season. He's played 7 games, didn't really have an impact. Do you give him a leave pass, so to speak, and say, righto, we'll forgive this year, but geez, you got to get better next year? Or are you putting him on notice and saying, mate, another year like that and you're out of here?
Oh, definitely. He's one of the players, and we talked about it last week. I mean, the most important week for the Carlton Football Club was last week with their exit meetings, and he's one who should have been straight down the line, told the truth, and where he's at, and where he's going, because he's not going anywhere at the moment. He's just stagnated in his. And a lot of that, look, a lot of it's got to do with injury, but he's got to improve a hell of a lot in a short space of time. So, and
hopefully a good pre-season will help him out, eh?
He needs a massive pre-season. He needs a huge pre-season, and he needs to be the fittest bloke out there. He needs to strive to be, up there running with the elite runners, and just push himself to get to that. Otherwise he's just going to be a bloke who's going to drift along and be no good to anyone.
All right, Ollie Hollands, number 4, another young player in his second year, 20 years of age.
Second year again. Look, do you
think he took strides this year in improving the way he plays based on last year, or do you think he's going in the right direction?
Yeah, I just think he ran a hell of a lot for very little reward. And I don't know. That's what they want him to do.
His average disposals is 14 per game.
Yep.
Which is below average. His average kicks is nearly 9, which is below average, and handballs 5, which again is below average. His average marks is average at nearly 4. 3.5 tackles is also average. Clearances is less than 1 clearance a game, so again below average. So his statistics on this season aren't flash in terms of how much of the ball he's getting, but a lot of people talk him up like he's starting to improve in certain ways, and maybe even a shift. There was even an attempt to shift him to the half-back line at one stage late in the season, which seemed to work reasonably well. Would you persist with that as well, or would you just leave him on a wing?
Yeah, well, no, I thought that West Coast game, he actually they put him in the back line, and he ran because that's what he can do. He's an elite
runs
runner.
Forward,
and he was just causing mayhem out there for the West Coast. I'm trying to think of the young Aboriginal boy who played on that day who wasn't real fit, but he
Flying Ryan.
Sorry,
Flying Ryan.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Yes, he played on him, and he could not get any. He couldn't keep up with him, and he was causing havoc down there. So look, he could really be the an answer back there as well. But his running ability needs to be used better than that sort of running up and down a wing and defensive side of it. He can run. He's got a bit of pace, and
he's a goer too.
Skill, and he has a crack too. He puts his body on the line. He'll chase down blokes and tries pretty hard. So, I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be a good player for a long time. And
okay, all right. Well, we're concentrating on the young and emerging players on our list. We're going to go for a little bit longer, seeing we're getting through this. We want to get through enough players to tackle all this over the next 3 weeks. So bear with us. Jack Carroll, number 16. He's only 21 years of age. He's played a few games this year, and sometimes as a sub, sometimes on the bench. He came in when the injuries hit as well. But how did you sum his year up? It's a bit of a mixed bag from Jack.
Yeah, he looks good at times, but most left footers do. Most left footers do look good. So look, I'm the jury's out a little bit.
Is he out of contract or?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he is.
So they haven't offered him a new contract. Do you think there's a chance that he might be looking for greener pastures himself? So he can get a regular opportunity somewhere else?
West Australian, both teams are looking desperately for players to come back. So
he's West Australian, is he? Oh, yes, he is.
So maybe there's a deal that could be done there and or whatever. But he's got a bit of talent though. He's got a bit of talent, the kid. So he just, I don't know. He's only 21.
Do you think if we kept persisting with him, is he going to make it? Do you think he's going to be a regular fixture in the senior side, or is he only ever going to be a bit type player that comes in whenever we need someone to fill a role and there's a few injuries on and all that sort of thing?
It's going to be hard while you've got Cripps and Walsh in there for really any other.
So you
player.
don't think you don't think he could eventually take someone like Matthew Kennedy's spot or Adam Kerr's spot or George Hewitt's spot or someone like that if he improves enough, that is.
Well, that's it, and they're all ahead of him at the moment. So that's
he's only 21.
Sometimes you got to grab your chances when you get them, and he sort of hasn't been able to do that yet.
That's true. Now, I'm going to throw this guy in as a young player, even though he's now 23, and he was our first draft pick some years ago now, and he's been predominantly played in defence, but we saw a shift up forward late in the year. Brodie Kemp, number 17.
Yep.
What do you make of his year, and looking forward, where would you be playing him if we're going to keep him on the list?
Well, I'd play him in both spots. I'd play him forward and back. I think he could be a bit of a swingman for us, but we need to. You can't. He played on Radaglia in late in the season, and Radaglia
ragdolled him.
Well, he did. He just wasn't big enough, and that's the problem. We're putting him on in that back line. He flies when you fly for marks in the back line. You've either got to thump the ball 20, 30 metres away or take the mark. And
sometimes he goes for the mark when he should be.
He was doing neither. He was doing neither. He wasn't taking the mark or thumping it away, and we were getting killed because of it. So his decision-making there needs to improve. But, look, I just think he was given some tasks he just wasn't physically able to match this year. And that's what we're saying about we need another tall backman in there to help Weeders, because he was getting thrown jobs that he wasn't quite up to, and I think he needed a bit more defensive side of his game too, because he was making some big blues back there that cost us goals at crucial times.
Okay, Corey Durden, who's 22 years of age, number 19, never really got out of first gear, did he, Corey? And he also had a pretty debilitating shoulder injury, which he seemed to be playing with in those last few games that he played, but I just didn't see him have any impact at any stage.
No. He had one quarter, I think. It might have been against West Coast, was it? One quarter before he got hurt in that match. And I think he had about 12 possessions, which I'm thinking, shit. This, and he was one of the blokes I'm thinking, shit, this kid can play footy. He's up to it. And then he got hurt and went on.
It was almost a game, that West Coast game was almost a game where all the young players, the shackles were off. And it was like, well, we're the only ones the team's got left. They're playing us because they have to. Let's just go out there and show them what we're capable of. And that's what they do.
Have a look when a coach gets sacked and they put an interim coach in. And the first thing he says, I'm going to let them go out and play and enjoy their footy. What do they do? They start winning games of footy. They start winning games of footy because they go out and enjoy it, and they're playing footy. They're enjoying it.
That's
you see
right.
Smiles on their faces, and they're happy. It's a relief off them, to be able to get out. And
to be honest, it was one of the most enjoyable victories of the. I know it was only against West Coast, and they were, pretty much putting the queue in the rack by this stage of the season, I reckon, with an interim coach in place at the time, but. It was one of the most enjoyable wins we had the whole season, I reckon.
Well, they'd won two in a row leading into that game too, and we were decimated with injuries. So that was a great win. That was a great win. And
would you persist with Corey Durden then? I think he is contracted for next year, but
he's contracted.
Do you see him being another small forward that has a regular spot, or has he got to change the way he plays now?
He's got to get more of the ball, he's got to do more. They've got to get either super fit or super something because they're super smarter because they're just they at times they look like witches' hats out there because you've got Owies, Durden, Motlop. There's not much difference between all three of them. I mean, what do they offer different to each other? And yet at times we play all three of them at once.
Owies is probably the consistent one, if I say anything like.
Well, Owies gets more goals.
He's limited, but he does what he does. I mean, we all know he's limited, but yeah, the others are just, I don't know. Mars calls him cardiac Durden. He just keeps on running, doesn't do nothing, just runs.
Cardiac Durden.
But I'll tell you, he's running those running patterns. That's what he's doing. He's got those running patterns worked out real well.
Another young player who had his first year with us this year. He's only 22, but geez, he plays with a bit of maturity, if you ask me. Elijah Hollins, Ollie's brother. What do you make of his debut season for Carlton?
Fantastic. He really is going to be a player. People forget this kid did an ACL. I think I'm pretty sure it was in his last year, in his juniors, and missed the whole year. I think he's still got picked up at around number 5. Now
picked up number 7 in the national draft.
Yeah, by Gold Coast, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and
correct.
So that's the quality of what sort of player he was. But people forget a young kid doing an ACL. I mean that messes with your head a fair bit. I mean you rehab, and it's a long road back, and the doubts you can have after that, with landing, just jumping and landing and little things. It takes a while to get back, but look, he very early in the games this year, I was watching him move, and he is a slick mover. He's got some real tricks about him. He's a quality footballer. So this is the first full season he's had.
Yes,
and you could see towards the end he started looking a bit tired towards the end of the season, and that's because it's the first full season he's been able to put together. So he's only going to get better, and he's going to be a real good player.
I think he played something like the 22 out of the 23 games.
He's going to come through the middle a lot. He's going to be a quality player. He's going to kick goals. He is going to be. That's one I am really looking forward to seeing him play, because he's going to get a lot better, and I think that's going to help Ollie too. I think that's going to help him along as well.
Well, his statistics this year show. Sorry, Rash?
He kicks both feet.
Yeah, he can do that too.
Yeah. Not many do it.
His statistics this year show that he's at not only above average, but at an elite level for number of disposals, kicks, marks, and overall, the fantasy points that they attribute. He's up around 75 per match, which is very high. So, about the only areas that he's average is in tackles, about 2.5 tackles a game, and just under a goal a game. So maybe that's one area that he can work on. But it was a pretty good first year. I mean, I reckon he'll win for best first year player for us this year.
Yeah,
at the Best and Fairest Awards.
Yeah,
because as you said, we didn't really blood any youngsters until right at the end of the season. So, best first year player would have to be him. He'd have to have a mortgage on that, I reckon.
Absolutely.
All right, next one I'm going to go to is Jackson Binns, number 25, who finally got a couple of games under his belt towards the end there against West Coast and against St Kilda. Then was dropped for the Brisbane final. What did you make of his couple of games?
Yeah, pretty good.
Let's briefly go past these guys.
The funny thing was, we were waiting to see him, and there were so many knocks on him. And then when he got there, he wasn't too bad. So,
isn't it amazing?
Did a bit better than than I don't know. I don't know why they weren't playing him. If I was his manager, I'd be shopping him around tomorrow. I'd be shopping him around somewhere else, because it doesn't seem like got much confidence in him down there, but he knows how to get the ball. He can run.
He's only 19.
Yeah, he's his first year, wasn't it? And
Second year on the list.
was it?
Yeah.
And
he didn't get a gig last year, and this year he only finally got a gig. Well, I think he was a sub against Collingwood in his very first game, which is a disgrace.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then I think he got those last two games against West Coast and St Kilda when we had that many injuries that they had no option but to play him.
Yeah, exactly. That was the only reason they're playing him. I don't know. Hopefully they've seen that he can play at that.
Well,
level.
the more he played, the better he
Exactly.
got. The better he got as the game wore on. I thought.
Yep. Reece, did you present him with the jumper? Wasn't it you that?
No, Cooper Lord.
Cooper Lord, you did. Sorry.
Yeah. And by the way, that's the next one I'm going to. Cooper Lord, number 36.
All right.
Look, he Cooper Lord, I think started a bit slow. You know, he was sort of looked like he was out of his depth early in that game against West Coast, but worked his way into it. He's a mature age. I don't know how much.
You know, he averaged 17. He averaged 17 disposals in his first two games.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Which is pretty good. You know, above average for marks, above average for tackles, 4.5 tackles as an average. So he did all right. I actually thought it would have been a really wise move to play him if any of the three between him, Ashton Moyer, and Jackson Binns, I reckon he was the one that looked most comfortable at the level for someone who could play a whole game. I would have put him in that final against Brisbane.
I would have played Ashton Moyer. That kid's got some tricks. He's got some tricks. He can play. He's got some football nous and ability.
Yeah,
and there's another one you hope, you know. And it's funny because you talk to the people around the footy club and they couldn't believe what they saw because he struggled to get the ball at VFL level, but that's what happens with some players because it's bloody hard to get a kick down there because it's you're playing out in the elements. The grounds aren't as great, you know. The players aren't putting the ball out in front of you on you know. You just got to do things. And you probably got to go and get the ball a bit more in you know, and that's probably what he needs to be told, you know, bloody put him on the ball or something, or put him somewhere because that kid can play. He can play, and there's another one who's a South Australian who you know, you hope he doesn't sort of, you know, meander along
and go back home.
Bugger it, you know, I'll go back home.
Is he Indigenous, by the way? Is he an Indigenous player?
I think he is, yeah.
Ashton Moyer is.
Yeah, is he?
Yeah, I think he is, yeah.
Chat, if anyone knows in the chat, let us know, 100%. Okay. So I guess you did two in one.
We've probably done 2 in 1 there with Cooper Lord and Ashton Moyer because they were the last couple I was going to talk about today. And I think that pretty much covers the young. What's that?
I said good because I haven't had dinner yet.
Oh, right. Neither have I. Do you want to have dinner together, Reece? No, look, we'll finish it up there. Next week, we'll get into some of the more established players, but we've pretty much tackled the young boys and the ones who haven't played too often. The other one I was just going to briefly ask you about was not that he's a young bloke, but he only played the one game and yet again got injured, just like he did in his first game, was Sam Durden, number 38, the tall defender. I can't see him staying on the list, to be honest. Can you?
No, Marshmallow comes to mind when I talk about him.
I don't think he's up. I don't think his body's even up to AFL level, let alone.
I think he's pretty soft anyway. Yeah.
All right, Reece. Right. Well, mate, thanks for that. That's been tremendous, and you know, we thank you again for your time, and look forward to seeing you next week when we continue our review of the Carlton list, and also we'll review the 2 preliminary finals.
Let's hope the umpiring can improve over the next
before
we get to the grand final. And before someone loses a grand final because of bloody umpires, that's 100%. What I'm hoping doesn't happen.
Reece,
that's for sure.
Go enjoy your dinner. We're sorry we're taking so much time.
No worries. Thanks, guys. All right.
Good on you,
Thanks,
mate.
Reece.
No worries.
Bye.
Cheers.
All right.
Well, Rash, I think we're going to wrap it up there, mate. I think,
It's good.
Not going to
Going
bother
forward.
with all the other segments this week. I'll give my verdict a rest this week. I was going to go into a couple of things, but maybe I'll talk about them next week. But all I can say is with the and Reece touched on it already, the umpiring decisions that can turn matches, honestly. I think that I feel for the umpires in some way because they're almost damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. It's getting to the point where we're almost going to be preventing players from taking anyone to ground. The only way you'll be able to tackle them is if you tackle them standing up and don't dare bring them to the ground. And if the player themselves decides to go to ground, you've got to almost let go of him totally, because if you've got his arms pinged and he happens to hit his head on the ground, you're in massive trouble. I don't know. Where's the game going?
It needs a lot of improvement, but it's been a wonderful show. Thanks, Vince, for having me. Always a pleasure to fill in.
Thank you, Rash. Unfortunately, we didn't get Joe making his cameo appearance. I was waiting for it. I thought it could happen at any moment, but obviously he's occupied with family and friends tonight.
We'll be seeing him tomorrow also. So big hello to Joe.
Yes, because he heads back to Thailand on Tuesday. So we're hoping to catch up with him for a brief lunch tomorrow, aren't we?
Absolutely. Okay, just a couple of formalities. Don't forget to watch the Jumper Punch on Tuesday night. The boys are back on. Seriously, they're doing some amazing. Did you hear their rant? Rocco did a rant for about 2 hours about the Carlton game. Anyway, I'm on Thursdays. I'm on Thursdays at 7. Please,
unmissable. The change room. You've got to watch it. You had a huge audience last week.
It was massive. We had Rocco as special guest, that's why. But we had,
I think
we've gone past 600 views or something. It's crazy. It went really good. We had a lot of interaction. If you're not watching
one thing we forgot to ask Reece before he left. What was his predictions for the 2 preliminary finals? But doesn't matter.
Nah, doesn't matter.
Who do you like? We'll get your predictions. Sydney versus Port Adelaide in Sydney on Friday night.
I think it's Sydney. Because of the home ground advantage. I reckon.
Do you know the last time they played? Port Adelaide beat them by 112 points.
So that's the only thing that's going to go for them, because they've got that advantage that they beat them so easily. So, but I don't think it's going to be the same thing now, right? So
no, I think you're right. I think Sydney's going to be cherry ripe, and I think Port Adelaide's a bit banged up there. I think they played their grand final last Friday night, I think.
So I would say Sydney, and I would say Geelong, because I reckon Brisbane was. I mean, what they did. Don't know.
This is the one I'm going to disagree with you on. I think Brisbane is going to knock off Geelong.
See, knocking off Geelong means they're going to probably win the flag.
Well, maybe, but I actually really think Brisbane are a massive show against Geelong. If they bring their A game with them and they kick accurately for goal, I think they'll beat Geelong. That's my prediction. It's what I hope happens. And you think Tom Hawkins, it's what my head's telling me could happen. So I'm going to run with it.
And you think Tom Hawkins will play?
No.
And Guthrie?
No.
Okay.
I don't think either of them are ready for playing finals. The only reason that they would play them is if they've got injuries to other players and they literally have no one else to bring in. But if all of the rest of the team is available, I think Hawkins and Guthrie both miss.
All right. Let's wrap this up.
Okay.
Thanks, Vince, for having me on. You've been watching.
Thank you.
You've been watching Blue Sunday with Vince, Rash, and David Rhys-Jones. Catch us next week. You're going to be going through the rest of the players and a review of the 2 preliminary games.
We will indeed. 7:30 next Sunday night.
And in the count of 3, 1, 2, 3.
Go Blues.
What happened?